Happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to our Educator to Educator webinar series. Today, we're going to go ahead and chat a little bit about creating engaging STEM lesson plans. My name is Jeremy Adney. I work as one of our managers of software at SMART, but we're really excited for today's presenter because she's here today to share her classroom expertise and talk mostly just about, the creation process in terms of STEM content and how, some of the exciting things she does in her classroom. So with that, I'll turn it over to Heather. Heather, go ahead and take it away.
Hey, thanks, Jeremy. So my name is Heather Elliott. I am a grade 3 through 5 gifted STEM teacher at the Marietta Center for Advanced Academics in Marietta, Georgia. We were one of the first STEM certified schools in the state of Georgia. So today we're just going to talk about STEM thinking, getting the students in that mindset before beginning any kind of really STEM challenges or STEM lesson plans. They have to get in that thinking mode. The engineering design process that kind of drives that STEM thinking, and then the SMART case study that the Marietta Center for Advanced Academics was a part of. So we kind of start off the school year getting the students in that STEM thinking state of mind, and we talk about STEM as an acronym and what each component of STEM is: the science, the technology, the engineering, and the math, and that each one stands for something specific, but they all come together to create STEM in the classroom to get them prepared for real-world experiences. So we kind of start off with different kind of videos that show real-world application of STEM and the components that it has that they can use in the classroom that prepare them for the real world. And so here on this link is I won't click on it and make you watch the video, but it's a video about STEM and why it's important for students to prepare them. So at the end of the video that we would show to kick off STEM at the beginning of the year for all the grade levels, the video ends with the narrator stating, "Tomorrow's jobs are in science, technology, engineering, and math." And so we would bring shout it out on the SMART Lab just to kind of have the students share what they think that quote means from the video, and it gets rolling a really good conversation about what they think that STEM is and what they think each component means within the whole realm of it. Really great conversations come out of that help us drive our instruction of STEM. Every student in our school, grades 3 through 5, has a designated STEM time in their day. It's always an hour long, well, 50 minutes to an hour long, depending on transition. So every day they have a STEM class from their math and science teacher. And then this just kind of shows them, and we talk about how that the 4 individual subjects, of course, come together to create STEM, and that it's creative thinking, it's communication and collaboration, which is a big part of STEM thinking, is having that collaboration piece and being able to communicate and work as a team and in a group to solve a problem. And we talk about communication and collaboration, and we do a lot of team building, at the beginning. I don't think I said that at first. But we have a lot of team building activities that we do just to kind of promote collaboration, communication, how it's impossible to work as a team if you don't have those things. And that those are very important for the STEM job fields.
And how would you mind just sharing, because kind of asking, I think, a question that some of the folks on the live, how do you go about designing a team building exercise inside of the classroom as you prep your students into that STEM mindset?
Just planning them, kind of assessing, what is it, their nonverbal communication? Is it that, there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians? Basically just assessing their needs, like, where does the problem lie? I know this year when we first started up our STEM or gifted STEM classes, I did a nonverbal team building activity where they had to build the tallest marshmallow tower. It had absolutely no standards or content related to it. It was just that they talked over each other. No one was listening. And so I thought, okay, let's do a nonverbal team building activity. And they actually worked better non-verbally than they did verbally. But just kind of knowing your students and knowing where those problems lie, what kind of activities you need. And so we kind of want to know just from them what their STEM background is. And so right here, 3rd, 4th, and 5th can click on their designated grade level, and it brings up a little scavenger hunt. And it's good at the beginning of the year because students are all getting to know each other. And they're basically all STEM related. Just a few of them knows what the acronym STEM represents. They can name an ancient technology, knows an engineer, and so they just kind of go around the room getting to know each other through this way, and it helps us understand, kind of what they know about STEM. It's a little differentiated for 4th and 5th grade, just in the questioning of it. And then we go into the piece, what is the difference between an engineer and a scientist, and then a turn and talk. What is your choice? What would you rather be? Why would you rather be that? At this point, they kind of have that that thinking that an engineer is kind of like a scientist. So this is where we kind of branch off. An engineer and a scientist, are two totally different things. And so we kind of do a little video that shows the difference between the two and how they're similar and how they're different. And then this is a really great activity that we get just to have them, again, we're just trying to get them in that mindset, that STEM thinking mindset at this point. A scientist versus engineer, kind of a sorting activity. We've done it several different ways. We've got the paper strips, cut them so the students can actually manipulate them in a Venn diagram. Some students have gotten on to SMART and kind of typed in what the strips are, and they've collaborated with group members in their SMART workspace to show the similarities and the difference of a scientist and an engineer. And then we have just a little ticket out the door that we use. I think it's going to come up. Maybe not. But the ticket out the door just kind of says, can you name one piece of great technology that was used in ancient times that kind of correlates to today? And it just kind of goes through, it's not going to come up, and it just kind of goes through the different things that an engineer and a scientist may see and how they're similar and how they're different. And then we go into a video about STEM saving the day, and it leads into our design process. And this is really neat because our students, we took the design process, the engineering design process loop, some people call it, and we had our students research different posters that have been made and the different steps in the engineering design process: ask, research, imagine, plan, create, improve. And we gave them a design challenge. We challenged them to create one that's specific to our school. It just kind of gave them ownership, and it took them through the process as they were creating the design process, engineering design process loop poster. So this is actually one that we have hanging in all our classrooms at our school, and 3 of our students collaborated together to create this poster. Can you state the problem? Use a variety of sources to gather in-depth information. What have others done before you? It takes them through the imagine process, generating different ideas, different questions, and then the plan. We really encourage them to plan out whatever they're working on in a methodical way. What materials are you going to need? What steps are involved? How can you finish this in the designated time? So they're really planning out their whole process of their product, and then them following their plan, because what we want them to see is, you have this wonderful plan, there may be hiccups along the way, and then you reflect on that and you improve upon it. So this, after they worked on the engineering design process loop, we showed, of course, a little video that talks about engineering process, and it saves the day, which brings us into our first design challenges that we do at the beginning of the year. The first one, and we differentiate it by grade level, the third graders start off with Save Fred. And if, Kelly, if you click on the link on the cup, it'll bring up a design brief. And this is kind of how we write up all of our engineering design challenges in this brief. It gives them a problem. It gives the students a problem. Fred has been spending the last days of summer boating on Lake Altoona. Then it gives them a challenge. You and your fellow lifeguards have been called upon by the local lake patrol to become part of their rescue team. And again, we're just trying to bring a real world experience into this fun STEM activity. And then they have criteria and constraints. Usually it's materials that they have to follow. We try to bring in a math component as much as possible. And then, of course, the materials that they have to use. They can't use any more materials, only the materials that are listed on there. And it's not to stifle their creativity or anything. It's just to show them, you know, that these are the materials, this is what you have, this is your criteria, this is your constraints, and you have to work within the parameters of this to reach your goal. And then for the fourth grade, we step it up a little bit because, of course, they've been there during their third grade year. They have more of the understanding of the engineering design process. And so now they work to rebuild the tower that was destroyed by the earthquake. And again, if you click on the link, there is a write-up of the design brief. Rebuild the tower while vacationing in California. An earthquake measuring 5.5 on the Richter scale occurred. And fourth grade for us has the standard of weather. So we're bringing in earthquakes and we start talking about the Richter scale and what all that means. And then they have their challenge. This is what they have to do. This is the challenge before them. And then the criteria and constraints. This is the parameters you have to work within to get to that end goal. And then design a plan using string and the rubber bands. You must have the cups from this position to this position. And then the materials. The materials is what always kind of stumps them because, you know, they're having to work within these certain guidelines. So that's fourth grade. And so this is just kind of a graphic organizer for them. Usually we just send this right into SMART Amp and they can work collaboratively on there together with their group or their partner. And it goes through the brainstorming. What's the best strategy? They draw a diagram or they write the steps that they plan to use to build it. And then for this one, it's kind of a short one. So it's, were you successful in rebuilding the tower? Why not? This is a big piece of the engineering design loop, is the reflection part, because that's where the improvement comes. So it shows we all make mistakes, you work to fix it. And then the fifth grade is a catapult. And then we kind of relate it back to, of course, this is the beginning of the year. It's just getting them in that STEM thinking. So it's you and the catapults help launch STEM. So if you click on that and scroll down, this one just kind of, it takes it a little more in depth. Of course, they're fifth graders. They've had, you know, the whole STEM process for the past 2 years. So we can add a little bit of math into it, a little bit more science into it. We try to stagger it from third, fourth, and fifth. The third is just getting them used to that STEM thinking. Fourth grade takes it a little further, and then the fifth grade, they of course have a lot more constraints and criteria, and the accuracy and the power. We go more in depth into what all those terms mean for building the catapult. And then that's the planning page. Of course, there's they sketch their catapult designs. How are they going to set it up? How are they going to make it where they're going to have the longest distance? And then they test for the accuracy of it. The trials. So they're doing ratios. They're having to learn ratios. Which catapult was more accurate? Why do you think so? Which one had the best leverage? All right. So these are the three that we usually start off with in third, fourth, and fifth, the Save the Fred, the catapult, just to get them, again, in that STEM thinking mind so that we can start with our grade level themes. Each grade level has an overarching theme. Third grade is relationships, fourth grade is exploration, and fifth grade is surviving change. That's our big overarching theme. And then we have units within those themes that our STEM teachers teach throughout the year, and they all relate to the standards that each grade level has. And this year it's been great because we've worked it out where STEM teachers and math and science, we can all have a common planning time so that we're planning these units together. So this is just an example of a design challenge for third grade. They are habitats and Georgia regions. That's one of their standards. And so their design is they're stranded in a region of Georgia. They've been asked to create a model of a shelter that is strong enough to survive the specific elements that are unique to their region. Again, we're trying to bring in real world scenarios with their grade level standards.
And Heather, I want to pause real quick. There's been a couple really great questions that have come in. One of the ones is, so what would you suggest to fifth grade teachers who, students haven't used STEM challenges in earlier grades, but now they want to start, in fifth grade? How would you approach something like that?
Yeah, I think just starting off kind of slowly, like I showed in the beginning of it, just kind of getting those conversations started. What is STEM? What are the components of it? Really breaking down each acronym of STEM and then talking about the real world connections. I think before they can actually go into STEM challenges or even STEM experiments, they have to understand the whole process of the engineering design loop. And so it might take, the first couple of months of school just to kind of get that thinking, that way of thinking, before really starting the design challenges with them. I know that a lot of teachers within the classrooms, like within their core content, when they're doing a project, they use the design loop as a kind of a graphic organizer. So, whatever project you may have in fifth grade, you can start off, asking the question, what are you trying to solve? Like, what is your project for? What is it all about? And then kind of just going through the design loop.
And I think that's a great answer. And I know we have a handful of folks on the call that teach, at the middle school and high school level. But I think that, and knowing just a little bit of, how you support teachers at your school, how would you apply some of those concepts just if you were chatting with, a middle school teacher in your district? How do you all kind of share those same concepts or design loop thinking?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same thing. Before they can even begin to start these design challenges, they have to have that STEM thinking process before they can go into it. And we're actually talking with, for the first time this year, talking with our middle school teachers about how we can streamline it from kindergarten all the way to eighth and ninth grade. High school they're starting to jump in on that also, those conversations. Because they do have that foundation in elementary school. And so to continue it, the middle schoolers are going to have to jump on, middle school teachers are going to have to jump on board with that. But yeah, I think to me, and my students, my personal child is in middle school. and he did not have STEM in elementary, but his middle school is a STEM school. And so he was just kind of thrown into it, and they started using 3D printers for all kinds of things, but he didn't have that understanding of, okay, what is STEM? What is the engineering design process? Why am I doing this? So I think just having those conversations is important.
Okay, awesome. And I think there's some really great other conversations coming in via the chat window and questions, but I'm gonna have you kind of continue onwards, and we'll pause every so often and continue to answer some of the great questions that are coming in.
Okay. So this one just goes with our 4th grade exploration. It's the Mars sensory poem, and this kind of brings in the ELA component. Like I said, we try to, after we get that STEM thinking, that whole design process, after we get that under our belts, we really start trying to dive into the content of it so that we can make it meaningful for the students. They're not just doing STEM related activities just to do them. It's relating to their content, and that's, you know, it's kind of double dipping. We're getting the most out of the standards and the content that we can. And so this one is, they've been learning through an exploration of the planet Mars and examining information that scientists have gathered. And their challenge is to create, use creative and critical thinking to communicate facts and feelings about Mars through a 5 senses poem format. So again, we're just bringing that science in there and ELA. And then this right here is our SMART case study. It was the impact of SMART Amp on STEM. And yeah, Kelly, you can click on that. I think this just kind of sums up our whole thought process of STEM and technology. Of course, we do not want technology to be our driving force. You know, we're still teachers, and that's where the instruction needs to come from. The technology needs to just help support it. And we really, SMART Amp just did that for us. We even saw growth on our science standards through this. You see the SMART Amp workspace right there. They watched the SMART slideshow about oceans on their workspace, and then they conducted research through the links on SMART Amp. And then they had to come up with their own I wonder questions, and then they had to post them, and then they had conversations to create, you know, conversations with each other about their wonder questions. So our whole thought process was we wanted to create student outcomes through an adoption of some kind of pedagogical strategy. And SMART Amp was brought to us, and the more that teachers started using it, we really saw the meat of it that could be used for a collaboration in that 21st century learner. And so we really saw student achievement through this technology adoption in the classroom and also on our state scores. You know, how can we directly say that those scores were because of the technology integration? We can't. We just know that after using it within our classrooms, within our STEM classrooms, we noticed a huge jump in our science standards because we were using it for the STEM process. And we think the correlation is there.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Well,
yeah. So there's a couple of great questions that I think, you know, I'd love to hear kind of your opinion for some of the ones that have come in. So one great question someone asked is, how do you go about, you know, at your school and your strategies of balancing providing necessary prior knowledge to complete a STEM challenge while also allowing them to do that kind of, you know, discovery, you know, and discovering content and knowledge on their own? So I think that's a great question. How do you balance when you're doing your STEM lesson design, the prior knowledge and the challenge part?
That is a great question. Within our science classes, they always do a pretest. And so the STEM teachers, we actually get that data so that we can see what pre-teaching we may have to do within our STEM classes before we start a design challenge. So there may be times where we have to kind of pre-teach a little bit so that they're not completely lost when they're doing that research on their own. But we have also found out too that providing them the opportunity for that research, they become independent learners, and really they begin to learn more than we would ever be able to teach them in the time constraints that we have.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Another question someone asked is, so, what if you're, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but what if you're designing a lesson right now and you want to design a STEM challenge, but you have funding challenges in terms of, STEM challenge supplies? How are some of the ways in which you design lessons there that don't have, barriers to entry in terms of, putting a STEM challenge together?
Right. So we do ask for, donations from parents. Usually our STEM challenges, though, the materials are things that you're going to find around your house. So it takes a little bit of pre-planning so that hey, you may need 20 toilet paper tubes. So you need to start collecting those. We try to be as resourceful as possible with the materials that we have. But again, just donations. I know I've been to Home Depot just to ask, hey, I need X amount of pieces of wood for this. And they're more than willing to hand over their chunks of wood to me, as long as they know what it is. But it's that, and you can create a STEM design challenge just using the materials that you have. And that's what we do sometimes. What do we have? What can we use? Or what can the students use in order to get to this end goal?
Excellent. And Heather, we've had a handful of questions about I know you showed a poster of a STEM challenge towards the start, as well as, kind of referring to the video that you might show your students. We had a few people ask about those resources. Where might they find, or be able to find, are they able to find a copy of that STEM challenge poster that you showed? Or some of the examples of videos? How would they go about trying to find content like that?
The videos, we just found them on YouTube. Honestly, I think we typed in STEM for kids and we got a lot of those different videos. We had to filter through and watch them to see which ones were appropriate and which ones we could use as a opening talking point. And the design, I'm not sure which design challenge or the poster. Which one did you say?
Let's say the poster. Yeah, sorry.
The poster is actually, Kelly, if you click down, the poster is actually something that our students at our school designed out on, I don't know, Teachers Pay Teachers or just on the web. There's lots of different engineering design process loop posters out there, but they usually come in separate entities. Like here's the ask poster, here's the imagine poster. So we had our students, we created a challenge for them to create one poster for the design loop that kind of sums it all up. And so that's where the poster came.
Okay, and is that something that you ran as a school-wide activity or challenge, or is that something that you have teachers who do similar things like that inside of their classrooms as they teach design?
This was a school-wide design challenge that we did for the poster, and then we kind of narrowed it down per grade, and they worked in groups, and we narrowed it down 2 groups in third, 2 groups in fourth, 2 groups in fifth, and then those groups presented however they wanted to, their plan, and then we chose from there.
Excellent. And someone just asked, where would they be able to find some of the sample, or how could they connect to hear more about, where they can find the STEM challenges that you all use if they wanted to use ones like this in their classroom?
A lot of them, now we have found a few on Teachers Pay Teachers and we have to tweak them, but a lot of them we just write ourselves. In fact, I would say 95% of the design challenges we just write ourselves. I'm more than happy to share them, any that I have. But yeah, we just we take the standards, we take what needs to be taught, what they already have a little understanding of. Design challenges are a good kind of summative assessment. And then we just write them from there.
I just did get one question, and if somebody asked us if they wanted to get a copy of this notebook file that you shared, is that something that you'd be able to share, Heather, with folks that are on the call? Okay, great. And we can actually put that together, you know, in a follow-up for our attendees. We can go ahead and send a copy of Heather's file there. A few things just to wrap up, and thank you so much, Heather. I think that kind of the main takeaway of today's webinar is we just wanted to get the chance to, you know, have some conversation around design thinking and kind of, you know, STEM-centric thinking in your classroom. I think, you know, getting the chance, you know, a few years back, I had the chance to visit Heather's classroom in Georgia inside of, you know, the school district that she teaches in, and got to see some of that, you know, student collaboration across the room and across the school that takes place. Just trying to answer and, you know, create that dialogue. Before everybody hops off today, just a couple quick reminders, and I'm going to have our webinar folks share a few links in the chat. One, I've gotten asked individually by quite a few folks, where would I go if I wanted to see this or pass this recording on to a colleague or whatnot, or if I wanted to answer the questions that we'll put up when we post this webinar in order to get a certificate. There's actually a web link that we'll put inside of the chat window in a moment that you can bookmark. We won't have posted this immediately, but in the next few days we'll have posted today's webinar, and you'll have the ability to just actually skip to the end of the webinar since you all have already watched it. And if you answer the questions, there is a certificate process that we mentioned, and just keep your eye on the chat window. I'll put in, we'll have one of our folks put inside of the chat window right now that link. The other link that you'll see inside of our chat window, just for folks that are SMART users, it's a really exciting time for us. We just have launched a part of our SMART software suite that we're calling SMART Learning Suite Online. And there's going to be a hyperlink that you'll see inside of the chat in a moment that will say suite.smarttech.com. When you click on suite.smarttech.com, you'll just have a quick overview, and actually we're in a promotional trial period right now, even for folks who right now aren't on a SMART software subscription. So if you in your school don't subscribe to SMART software, but you want to try this out on suite.smarttech.com, you can. And you can see it will tell you how long our promotional period's lasting. But you can actually upload notebook files, SMART notebook files, into SMART Learning Suite Online, and then you'll have the ability to play those notebook files from browser-based devices, as well as share these files out during live sessions to student devices. So for folks on the call, if you have students in your class that use Chromebooks and you've ever used like lab activities or response question sets, or you know, shouted out some of our different kind of student feedback loop activities to measure student understanding. What's really exciting about the SMART Learning Suite Online platform is we're really trying to supercharge the active delivery of lessons inside of classes to student devices. So you can share out notebook content and lab activities all at once to your students for some self-paced and small group instruction. So check it out. Like I said, both of those links are inside of the chat window right now. The first one is the link that will take you to check out the courses. You can also, if you didn't attend our webinar 2 weeks ago, you can take a look at the one that was led by Kimberly Ball, one of our efficacy and implementation managers on STEM. And we will in the next few days post Heather's webinar. And then if you haven't ever seen or heard of SMART Learning Suite Online as part of the SMART software suite, you can visit suite.smarttech.com and actually give that a tryout. It's very, very exciting. So for folks, you should be able to see that in the chat tab on side of your sidebar there. And you can just go ahead and sign up, follow the directions on there. Thank you so much, Heather, for sharing just kind of some of your insights around your classroom with you know, us today, and just some of your thoughts on designing kind of that lessons that drive the STEM mindset and kind of a STEM challenge based in design thinking inside of your classroom. Really appreciate you taking your time today just to chat with folks on the call. Thank you so much for everybody who joined us today. Feel free to join us next month. So September was STEM month. Next month we'll have a new topic and some new presenters as we continue to try to create the conversation to help support you in instruction inside of your classroom. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Take care.